You think rich people just have more money. That's the story you've been told. It's comforting, it's simple, it's also completely wrong. Money isn't the difference. The difference happened long before the money showed up. It happened in the way a person learned to see a dollar bill in their hand. Two people can hold the exact same $100 and think two entirely different thoughts. One sees spending power. The other sees a seed. Same paper, same value, completely different relationship. Let's start with the question you've probably never asked yourself. What actually is an asset? Most people would say it's anything valuable. A car, a house, a watch, a closet full of shoes. But that definition is where the confusion begins. Here's the truth almost nobody explains clearly. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. That's it. That's the entire definition. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Not valuable, not nice to have, just does it feed you or does it feed off you? Now hold that definition next to your own life. Your car. Does it pay you or does it cost you gas, insurance, repairs, and depreciation every single month? Your house, the one you live in. Does it generate income or does it quietly drain your paycheck through a mortgage, taxes, and maintenance? For most people, the answer is uncomfortable. Almost everything they call an asset is actually a liability wearing a nice outfit. This single mix-up, this one blurred line between what feeds you and what feeds off you, it might be the most expensive misunderstanding of an entire lifetime. So how did the wealthy figure this out? Were they born knowing it? No. Somewhere along the way, someone taught them to ask a different question before every purchase. Not, can I afford this? That question is too easy to answer yes to. Credit cards made sure of that. The better question, the one that actually protects wealth, is this. Will this thing put money in my pocket or take it out? Picture two people. Both just received a bonus at work. Both feel that same rush of having extra cash for the first time in months. The first person sees a new car, leather seats, that smell, the feeling of pulling into the driveway and having neighbors notice. Understandable, deeply human. But 3 years later, that car is worth half of what it cost, and it's cost thousands more in gas, insurance, and repairs along the way. It only ever took. The second person, holding that same bonus, asks a quieter question. What if this money could make more money? Maybe it goes into a dividend-paying investment. Maybe it funds a small side business. Maybe it just sits in an account earning interest while they think it over. Nothing flashy happens. No neighbors notice. But 5 years later, that money has grown, and it started producing more money on its own. It became a machine. Here's the part that stings a little. The second person probably didn't enjoy that moment as much. There was no rush, no leather seat smell, no compliments. Delayed gratification rarely feels as good in the moment, but it compounds. And compounding is the quietest, most patient force in all of personal finance. It doesn't care how you feel about waiting. It just keeps working in the background, whether you're watching or not. This is where a second layer of the mindset shift comes in. Wealthy thinking isn't really about restriction. It's about redirection. It's not don't spend money. It's spend money on things that spend money back to you. That's a completely different rule to live by, and it changes every decision that follows it. Think about how differently this plays out with debt. Most people hear the word debt and immediately picture something bad, something to avoid at all costs. And for good reason, because most debt they've encountered has been consumer debt. Credit cards, car loans, furniture financed at 18% interest. That kind of debt is a liability with teeth. It takes and takes and never gives anything back. But here's what almost nobody explains in school. There's another category of debt. Borrowed money used to purchase something that generates more income than the debt costs to service. A loan to buy a rental property that produces monthly cash flow. A loan to buy equipment that lets a business produce more and earn more. This kind of debt isn't dangerous in the same way. It's a tool. Used carelessly, any tool can hurt you. Used with a plan, that same tool builds things. Is this risky? Of course it can be. Nobody is claiming otherwise. But notice the mental shift required just to consider it. It requires seeing debt not as a single flat category of bad, but as a spectrum, where the same word can behave in opposite ways depending on what it's attached to.
Now, let's talk about income, because this is where the second major misunderstanding lives. Most people are taught, directly or indirectly, that the goal is to earn a bigger salary. Work harder, get promoted, climb higher. And a bigger salary does help, there's no denying that. But a salary has a ceiling. There are only so many hours in a day, and only so much a single person's labor is worth per hour, no matter how skilled they become. Wealthy thinking asks a different question entirely. Instead of, how do I earn more per hour? It asks, how do I build something that earns money whether I'm working or not? That's the real fork in the road. One path trades time directly for money, forever, no matter how much the hourly rate rises. The other path builds something once, and that something keeps paying out long after the initial effort ends. A book, once written, can sell copies while its author sleeps. A rental property, once purchased and rented, produces income whether the owner spends the day at the beach or at a desk. An investment portfolio grows whether its owner is watching the numbers or completely ignoring them for 6 months. This is what's sometimes called passive income, though there's nothing passive about the work it took to set it up. The passivity comes later. The effort comes first, and it's real effort. Nobody builds an income-producing accident by accident.
Here's a question worth sitting with for a second. If your income stopped tomorrow, if your job disappeared overnight, how many separate sources of money would still be flowing into your life? For most people, the honest answer is 0. One source, one single point of failure. And that single point of failure is exactly why financial stress feels so constant for so many people. There's no backup system running underneath the main one. Wealthy thinking treats income the way an engineer treats a bridge. You don't build a bridge that only works if every single beam holds perfectly forever. You build in redundancy, multiple supports, so that if one fails, the whole structure doesn't collapse. Multiple streams of income work the same way. A job, a rental, a dividend account, a small side business. None of them need to be huge on their own. Together, they create something closer to financial stability than any single paycheck ever could.
There's one more shift worth naming, and it might be the quietest one of all. It's the difference between spending to look wealthy and spending to become wealthy. These two paths often start at the exact same income level, and they diverge completely within just a few years. Looking wealthy means the newest phone, the nicer car, the bigger apartment, all financed in ways that keep monthly payments high and savings low. It photographs well. It impresses people at dinner. But underneath it, there's often very little actually being built. Becoming wealthy looks almost boring from the outside. Older car, modest apartment, unremarkable wardrobe. But underneath that unremarkable surface, money is quietly being funneled into things that pay the person back, month after month, year after year. This is uncomfortable to hear, because it means the person who looks the most successful on the outside is sometimes the person furthest from actual financial freedom. And the person who looks the most ordinary might be the one quietly building something that will outlast every trend, every impressive car, every flashy purchase. So where does this leave you? Not with a list of investments to buy tomorrow morning, not with a lecture about frugality, just with one small shift in the question you ask before your next purchase. Not, can I afford this? Ask instead, does this feed me or does it feed off me? Ask it about the car. Ask it about the subscription. Ask it about the loan. Ask it about the job.
You don't need more money to start thinking this way. You need to start thinking this way, and the money tends to follow. Because in the end, wealth was never really about the size of the number in the account.
It was about which direction the money was flowing every single day, whether you were watching it or not. You think rich people just have more money. Now you know the truth. They just started asking a better question a long time before the money ever arrived.